welcome to another. Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to another Saturday discussion. This week we have Ruby developer Latoya Allen. Say hi, Latoya.
Hi,
Latoya, where are you from?
I'm living in Chicago, Illinois right now.
Nice. My sister actually just left Chicago, so I don't. Is there a reason why she left? Are you planning on leaving too? Because you said currently.
I well, I'm working a remote position, so I'm planning on taking advantage of that and kind of traveling and working from who knows where and landing wherever I land.
You're very, very lucky. I would love to do anything remote. Instead, I drive 2 hours a day just to go to work and back. So Latoya, what made you get into development?
For me, it started off more as a hobby. At the time, I was bartending in Chicago, and I remember it was on an afternoon that my yoga class got canceled and I needed something to do. So I was surfing the internet and I found a few, what are they called? Code Academy was the first one I found. Those little code tutorials online, and I fell in love with it. I noticed that hours had went by and I was just playing around with code. And it didn't seem like hours went by. So I started buying books. I started going to meetups. That's how I got my start.
Were you like really like I hate to use the word techie, but were you like kind of into computers and stuff while you were bartending, or was it just kind of like, oh hey, I got this MacBook, let me see what's on the internet?
I'm naturally a curious person, and my curiosity goes through different waves. And I think before that, I was really into like bioengineering. I was reading all of these like books on stem cell research and whatnot. So I think I just kind of naturally like got into tech because I had a MacBook and I was bored and I needed something to do.
That's crazy. From bartending to stem cell research to Ruby development. So why Ruby? And for people, some people think that I have like this natural affinity against Ruby. I actually tried Ruby starting out and switched over to Python, but I don't have hatred for the language at all. So what made you choose Ruby?
Well, I actually started off with Python.
Uh-oh.
Well, the first book I bought was in Python. It was a data mining in Python book, which was really cool. There's a really big Ruby community in Chicago.
Mm.
So I think that, and there's more Ruby jobs, there's more opportunities in Ruby. I like working in Ruby. I think it can be a super clean, super easy language. RSpec is a great testing suite. I actually prefer functional programming, so I really love Clojure. That's my favorite language, and I'm learning Rust right now. Rust is awesome. But for working job-wise, for me, being in Chicago, Ruby is the way to go.
Nice. So you just basically you left Python for the jobs, I get it.
Yeah,
That's cool. Maybe one day we'll pull you back in.
maybe.
So you created a program. What was that program?
So the program is called Luna, and the intention is for it to be some kind of finance management app. It's a simple command line app. Essentially, you give it a data file and it parses that data and it presents you with your transactions for the month and your balance.
Nice. And that's awesome. One of the first programs that I ever wrote was another. It was something similar to that where you just literally load in, oh, I went to this place and I spent this much money, and it would do kind of the similar thing of say, hey, you spent this much this week. Hey, stop going to this place. It costs you a lot of money. So for me, that was out of like, I guess I don't want to say like financial irresponsibility, but at the same time, it probably was. My wife would definitely say that. So for you, was it like I need this program app? Like I've tried Mint, Mint doesn't work. I've tried the banking app, and those don't work. Or was it just kind of out of curiosity?
It was just kind of out of curiosity. I find that there are a lot of, and again, it's a very simple bare bones app, but I find myself when I'm managing my finances thinking, wow, I really wish it did something like this, or wow, I really just wish it did something like that. Um, so I feel like if I did add more functionality to it, it would be pretty cool because I could actually use it. So you never know.
That's like the bane of all developers. You build something and then you're like, well, it's good, but it doesn't do this, and then like all of a sudden you scrap your project and start over, and then 2 years later you're like, man, I just wish I had that original app. So
Yeah, well, that's what GitHub is for. It's all about the version control.
yes, yes. Can we see the app? Can we see it in action?
Sure, let me screen share. Where's my mouse? Okay. Okay. So can you see my iTerm right now?
I can.
Okay, perfect. So what do I have in here? Okay, everything is up to date. Ruby main.rb. So it's a simple command line app, which for some reason, even if I'm going to build something in Rails, I kind of like to build a command line app first, just because I like that feeling of bare bones. I don't like having to generate a bunch of things that I don't need. And as long as you build it to be very open to change, it's very easy to just take those pure Ruby files and stick them in a Rails app. So let's see here. So as a user, you would clone down the repository, navigate to the Luna file, and then run ruby main.rb. And as you can see, we have a list of transactions with record numbers. And each record has a person, a type, an amount, and a source. So this particular person's name is Olivia. As you can see from the income, she babysits. She also happens to work at Heroku, as you can see under record number 1. And her only expenses are rent, boxing, and groceries. And at the end of the month, her balance is $550. So I think that's a pretty cool start for something that you can just run in the command line.
So now you were saying that you load these transactions in. How do you load those in?
Yes. So we can pop open my Vim. So as you see here, we have a data file, and it's got some sample data. And all I did for now is just put the income type, the name, which I have a spelling error. That's always fun to find. There we go. The amount, the source, and the day. That's it.
Okay, and I see so you're using just like kind of a day, as in day of the month, just like one, and it's only doing 1 month at a time. That's interesting. So basically, you would just manually put your data in here, and then it's doing more of a not a comparison, but it's just kind of processing that information and giving you the results that you want, not necessarily like tracking and holding on to that data.
Correct.
And I think there's kind of a beauty in that simplicity. I was talking with a friend. One of the reasons why we use tools like Trello is because it's so simple and it's at such a basic level. You can do more with it instead of saying, okay, you're locked into this one way of doing things. Where like, oh, enter the person's name. Oh, is this an income or an expense? Oh, what is the and at that point, if you wanted to do something like add categories to this, it's as simple as just adding another row.
Exactly. And then I wouldn't have to change anything in the data file to do so. All I'd have to do is change something in the parser, which would be very simple because it's so simplistic. And then as it grows and as it changes, sure, I can add more functionality. And then if I ever wanted to, again, make it a Rails app, or make it a mobile app, it would be super easy because I'd already know what kind of data I'm dealing with. But right now it's just very simple.
Nice. So how do you get that data, parsed and all your results fed? What does that look like?
Let's see here. Use nerd tree find. It'll pop us back where we were. So as you can see here, we have a lib file, we have a spec file, we have a gem file, and we have main. So main is the main boundary of the application, and this is kind of where I'm loading up all of my dependencies. As you can see, I have a user interface, I have a config file, I have a runner, I have a parser, I have a transaction factory. And I'm creating instances of these classes, and I'm passing them into my core runner, as you can see here, parser. So let's see here. Yeah. Here's our parser. And it's very simple. I like to try to keep my files 40 lines or shorter, just because once they get past 40, for some reason they tend to get past 100. And I know like the hard rule is 100, as they say, but for me, like there is never like a 99 or an 85. It's always like 40 or 150.
I forgot about that hard rule of 100. I think some of mine are at like 130, 140.
Yeah, it's usually a sign that my classes are doing more than one thing. So I try to do a little refactoring at that point. So the parser takes in a file, and then it uses Ruby's built-in file parser to read the lines. And I like to use map functions. It just splits the lines at a new line. And actually, you know what? I'm not exactly sure what's happening here. So we can open up Pry and we can take a better look at it, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm. And so Pry just like opens the actual parse data file.
Yes. Oh, no. That's unfortunate. It was working last night. What version of Ruby am I using right now? That is the problem. So I'm going to change the version of Ruby. Our VM use that, and now it should work. Here we go. All right. So Pry is a pretty cool gem, and you just bind it to whatever file you'd like to take a look at, and you can peek into it. So we have this file to work with, which is the data file, and we can literally just copy and paste this. So when Ruby reads the lines of a file, it puts it into an array, and it captures these new lines, which we obviously don't want. We want to extract or clean up that data. So what we can do is we can split off the new lines, and it creates several arrays within another array. One thing that I will stop and say is typically when you have nested data types like this, you want to keep them of the same. So it's a series of arrays and arrays, which is fine, but you wouldn't want like a series of hashes in an array or something like that. That usually causes problems down the line. So what does this thing do? Okay. And that just splits it up in an easier way for it to process, and then it returns lines at the end. Oops. So the parser just returns this first data with the income, the name, the amount, the source, and the date all split up.
Huh. So that's pretty cool. I like how it's just kind of, it's literally just breaking it apart, cleaning it up, making it look nice.
Yep.
That is so awesome. And you can look and see like just kind of the design, the functional design of it. I remember you're talking about you prefer functional programming.
Yes.
And it's definitely in there. I mean, even from like a Python perspective, I see it, and just kind of operating outside of a class and saying, oh, well, you have this item and it's a record, and the record has these values, and instead of creating just 5 different values, like, look, you have this data, all the data is the same, just make it happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think functional programming is like the ticked off mom. It's just like, look, stop asking me questions and just do it.
Exactly. And when you ask why, she's just like, because I said so. Go play outside.
Exactly. So I really like this. I like this tool. So what would be next for it? What would be your next goal with this if you had to do one thing?
Let's see here. So if I had to do one thing, I think being able to manage debt is really important. Even for myself, I have credit cards, I've got student loans, even though I don't have a degree in computer science. So I think for me, I think that adding in some kind of functionality to help me better manage debt would be really cool. I have a couple of ideas. So I have the idea of like, Have you heard this freezer and the credit card in the freezer method?
Yes, like
Okay.
you put your credit card in a giant block of ice. That way, if you need it, you have to thaw the ice out, and it gives you time to really think about whether or not you need it.
Exactly. So if there is a way for me to say, okay, like not only are these my, run something that says, yes, this is my balance, but I want to know what my debt is. What I know specifically want to know what my credit card debt is. And I'd like to know, which credit cards I'm paying the highest interest in, and those should be in some kind of freezer until they're paid off to a certain time. And usually credit cards, you have a credit card for a year and then the interest rate goes up. So it seems to me like it would be a cool idea to have like a credit card in the freezer for a year while your other credit card, is low interest, and then have your computer program say, okay, it's time to stop using this credit card and switch to this one or something like that.
I've heard of someone. I want to say it might have been my mom that did this when she was trying to get out of debt, and she literally called the credit card company and was like, "Don't like lock this card down." And they're like, "Sure, whatever, as long as you continue to pay the bill."
Right.
So I think even then, like maybe you could have like a virtual freezer where it just like sends an email out to your credit card company saying, "Look, this account, lock it down, allow no usage until this time."
Sure. That would be pretty cool. Or something that helps me to save a little bit more, Okay, I have $550 at the end of this month. How much of that can I actually spend? How much of that can I actually save? Just little things like that.
And that's what I was thinking about that as well when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, your remaining balance." I was like, "So that's your income to your natural expenses. Now, what about like do you do like the envelope method where you say like, okay, I have this much money that can go towards watching movies and this much money towards, buying shoes or
Right.
anything." So maybe you could do that, and even it'll tell you, like it'll say this is the best way to balance out your money.
Right. And I like that you have the specifics of like, this is how much I can spend on a movie. This is how much I can spend on shoes. Because a lot of finance apps, they give you this balance at the end, but like, it's not very personalized, like what if I pay off a credit card and like X amount of months, I deserve a pair of shoes, So
Exactly.
my app should
That
tell
is
me to
worth
go
it.
shopping.
Well, I chose those examples because my wife loves movies and I like shoes, so it works.
Yeah.
So, but definitely, I think that that reward method. There's actually an app that I just started using called Capital that does that in a sense, but it actually takes money away from you and puts it in like a savings account, and then when you hit the goal, it gives you all the money back and says, "Here, now go do that thing that you wanted to do." So
That's pretty
it'd be
cool.
pretty cool to do that. Except, but with that app, it's like I have to define the goal. I say, okay, start at like $300, and every week put $5 away. And for this, it would just be like, look, you have $500 left. You need to be able to like eat off of that, get gas off of that, which luckily we don't live in LA because that $500 would be gone.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it would be really cool. So if it was like the ultimate app, and by ultimate I mean like you're making like Facebook money off of this app. Like, what do you think would be the big feature? Like,
It's funny that you should mention that because I'm in this space now that I'm comfortable enough in my career where I just want to do something to make the world a better place, Like the first couple of years, it was like I have to find a job, I have to learn as much as I can. And now I have the skill set. And my thing, it's like you can either be a part of the problem or you can be a part of the solution. And I don't know if you have heard of this rush card nonsense that's been going on.
I have not. What is that?
Okay, so a rush card is a card for people who have such bad credit that they can't open a bank account. So
Oh wow.
essentially, yeah, so what they do, and it's Russell Simmons card. So what they do is they put their entire paycheck and it gets direct deposited on this card, and then they can just use the card. Right, which is useful because if you can't have a bank account, you can't get a credit card. And this is
Yeah.
2015. I don't know how I would survive if I didn't have like just a credit card to have. You don't always want to be carrying cash, whatever. And some things you need to purchase with a credit card, you know, if you're online shopping, or if you have an emergency and you
Yeah.
need to get out of town or whatever. So essentially there was some kind of problem with the update of this card, and people haven't had access to their funds for the past like 10 days. So these are people that are already in a really bad position because they don't have good enough credit to open up a bank account. And now they don't have money. And for me, like, that's such a huge problem. You know, it's like, how did these people get in the position where their credit was so bad that they couldn't open a bank account? And now they're in a worse position because they can't access their funds. So if I had Facebook money to do something, it would solve that problem, because this is 2015. We live in one of the richest countries in the world. There's no reason people should be living paycheck to paycheck. And if something happens to that paycheck, that their world should just explode. So I would solve that problem.
There you go. And I think that, you know, if you wanted to pursue that, you have a good starting point. You know, a lot of people forget that, you know, Twitter was started due to like text message limits. I mean, that's the whole 140 characters thing, was like, hey, you know, we need a way for me to send a message to everyone. And I mean, that's a pretty simple app. Like, Twitter clones are rampant across. That's like one of
Sure.
the big developer things is, oh, build a Twitter clone. And I mean, just something as simple as that of, hey, we have this problem. We want to solve this problem, but we have limitations. And I think your app has those limitations right now, but I definitely see all the potential of it. Like you said, keeping it minimal, making it so simple in the background that it's actually more adapt. And I hate to use the word agile, because I mean, I know that has like different meanings, but it
Sure.
really is. I mean, it's like agile in like an NBA player perspective, not in like a developer perspective. You could take this and just run with it and do anything and just change lanes really quickly. So I really like this tool. Where could I find this?
On github.com/LNA/Luna.
Okay, and is that where you kind of lurk? You just lurk on GitHub, or are you kind of a Twitter fiend like me, or?
Where do I lurk? Oh, I lurk on Twitter. I haven't been lurking as much lately, though. I need to lurk on Twitter more.
I would say that I don't necessarily lurk anymore, but I definitely I guess I creep now. I'm just like just
Great
watching,
now.
just stalking my people and seeing what they're up to. So on Twitter, what was that?
What was the question?
Where can they find you on Twitter?
Oh, on Twitter, twitter.com/#Latoya.
Hashtag Latoya. So was that from like the bartending days or the developer days?
Um, was my Twitter account from from the bartending days?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like hashtag Latoya, like literally the whole word hashtag.
Right. So the funny thing is I didn't know what Twitter was until I was bartending at a place in the Gold Coast here in Chicago. And one of the requirements of working there was that you had to have a social media account. So this is back when all of a sudden, like, every bar and every restaurant just started mass using Twitter and Facebook, and requiring that all of their employees did too. So there was a lady by the name of Katie Gorman who like taught us all how to use Twitter. And so that's how I started off. But then I realized that there's like such power in Twitter, you know, like I'd rather get my news from Twitter than the actual news, for example.
I've been doing that now. So do you coordinate with people and like, hey, you know, I'm building this financial app and like I want you to check it out, and like are you actually open to people contributing to this, or is it kind of just your little pet project?
I would love if people want to contribute to it. One of the things that I love about GitHub is it is a social tool, you know, so it's really cool that you can work with people anywhere. And now that I work remote, like, I have no problem hopping on a Skype session or a teammate session with someone and like saying, hey, this is the feature I need. Like, here's some breadcrumbs for you. Please feel free to like work on it.
Nice. So for those out there that are coding in Ruby and they want to help with this project, you now know what to do. You have the instructions, so I recommend that you just go out and do it. So
Just hit me.
I have a couple of other questions, and then after that we'll wrap up. But before we get done talking about Luna, do you have any requests for anyone out there?
Do I have any requests for anyone out there?
As far as your code, or just any shout outs or any calls to action?
Any calls to action or any requests? No, but if you want to contribute and you want to work on an awesome project, either tweet me. My email is on GitHub. Clone the repo and let me know if you want to do something. Or even if you want to learn. That's my biggest thing. Like, I love teaching. So if someone was like, hey, will you just please give me an overview of how you did this thing? I mean, it's fully tested. It uses some pretty cool design patterns. So I would love that. If anyone either wants to contribute or just wants to learn, let me know.
Nice. So outside of the Luna app, you were talking about a couple of other languages of Rust and Clojure.
Sure.
Do you have any projects going on with that?
So right now I'm reading through the Rust book, which is online. I did a couple of Rust katas. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of a code kata.
Yes.
Okay, well, for those who aren't, it's a way to test drive a solution, and ultimately you're supposed to find someone who's at craftsman level, who's already solved this problem, and follow and practice the way they do it, and then kind of do it on your own. The problem is that Rust is such a new language that I couldn't find a lot of katas done by craftsmen or people that are at that level yet. So I kind of threw together whatever pieces I could to make some Rust katas happen. And the next thing I'm doing with Rust is a philosopher's problem. It has to deal with multi-threading. It has to do with essentially running more than one background job at a time. So that's going to be really interesting because it's a problem that you can't solve with a language like Ruby. Unfortunately, Ruby is not built for that kind of threading. So I'm interested to see how Rust handles it.
Nice. And what about Clojure? You said Clojure was like your favorite language.
Yes, Clojure is my favorite language. I miss it so much.
Do you have any apps or products in Clojure?
I have several on my GitHub page, actually. So when I was an apprentice at Eighth Light, one of the requirements is that we build out an unbeatable tic-tac-toe in a minimum of 2 languages. And I believe that I did one in Ruby, I did one in Ruby, which was very hard because when you're building out an AI that has to process 300 and some thousand different game results and like build out these full games so it can figure out how to beat the player. It's very difficult to do that in object-oriented programming. So it was very easy to do it in Clojure, though. Clojure runs on the JVM. Clojure is a little closer to the metal. So a problem that was difficult in Ruby was easy to solve in Clojure, and that's how I kind of fell in love with the language.
Nice, nice. We'll have to bring you back on later to run through that tic-tac-toe, and of course I'm going to have to try to beat it.
You can try. You can tie it. You can tie it, but you can't beat it.
Like I was going to say, like, wow, if you make it so you can't even tie, like, I consider a tie a win in my book.
Mm-mm.
No?
A tie is a tie.
All right. So one final question. If I was wanting to get into building personal finance management tools in Ruby or building tic-tac-toe, groups or, unbeatable tic-tac-toe games, who would be the one person that I would start with?
If you
Other than you.
Who would be the one person you'd want to start with?
Yeah, who's like your biggest inspiration as far as like persons go?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if these people have built anything like, that. Well, the first thing I would do is if you had a specific app in mind and you're new to the programming world, you're a code newbie, The first thing I would do is go on GitHub and like just look at all the repositories. I think that people definitely underutilize GitHub. There's so much free information. Like you can search for unbeatable tic-tac-toe or tic-tac-toe, and you can come up with tons of test-driven, awesomely abstracted solutions for that. So that's the first thing I would recommend, is just like look at who's doing what on GitHub. Normally though, whenever I'm writing code, I like to think like, what would Sandy Metz do? That usually works for me. What would Katrina Owen do? And I have like a list of books that I've kind of read over the years. And I did a Code Newbie podcast, and I believe that those books may be listed on that. So I don't want to just like bore everyone with something that's already there. But yeah.
All right. So any final words?
My final words are just write code, write a lot of code, and pick something that you want to build and build it, and then delete it, and then build it again, and then delete it again, and then build it in another language, and then delete it again, and then build it. And that's all I've got for you.
Nice. Well, everybody, that was another Saturday discussion with Latoya Allen. And of course, I'm Jay Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at KJ Miller. And I'd like to thank Code Newbies for allowing us to come in and kind of do this great discussion. And if you want to find more about Code Newbies, you can reach out to us at codenewbie.org. Or you can follow us on Twitter at Code Newbies. And we have something for every language in mind, whether it's Java, Python, JavaScript, Ruby. I think we even have some Swift. And Latoya, we do actually have some Rust and Clojure devs in there. So be sure to check it out. But with that said, everybody, have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.